Yes, hello people. Welcome back to another episode of the Nabai Shift. I'm joined with my co-host Amari, and we have a lovely guest of ours. His name is Chris. He is the CEO of Logix BPO. Chris, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm well. I mustn't complain. I was just moaning to you guys saying I had a bit of an ear infection, but it's not going to hold me back.
No, lovely, it's lovely stuff. And Chris, where is it you're calling from?
I'm actually in the Philippines. I'm in Cebu. I've been out in the Philippines for 20 years. Can't remember what the UK looks like. Obviously, that's where I'm originally from.
You're not missing much, Chris.
But Chris, for the listeners, is it all right if you can give a brief introduction to yourself,
Yeah,
who you are, and of course, yeah, tell us a little bit about Logix BPO.
yeah, love to. Okay, so my name's Chris Mackintosh. I've been in the BPO industry for 37 years. I started out in India, transgressed to South Africa, and then 20 years ago came to the Philippines and kind of haven't looked back, although we still run sites in Africa and India and South America. So I've done everything in kind of what was the call center space, which is now the contact center space. So I've done outbound originally. Now I'm a big part in CS and CX, inbound multi-channel. Logix is a BPO organization that was also founded by a Brit called Anthony Godley. It's been running 4 years. I've been with them just short of a year. I joined because Anthony and I have known each other for a couple of years. We share the same kind of passions for the industry. We also have a skill set that kind of matches well together. I'm very big on operations, very big on, as I say, the CX and the CS work, plus the outbound telemarketing work. And Anthony is from a digital background. Our skill set is kind of nicely blended and mixed. Also being here in the Philippines, we both believe in obviously quality. We both believe in being good to the people and keeping our staff and making sure that by doing so, we keep our customers happy. Currently, we're around 2,000 plus seats. Majority of that is in the Philippines. And as I said, we do have other geos that support possibly around 15-20% of our seats across our footprint.
That's an amazing summary. I really do appreciate that, Chris. I kind of want to get my understanding. What does Logix focus on today, and how would you say the company has evolved over time?
That's a really, really good question because Anthony, when he launched the company, he launched it from a recruitment RPO kind of concept. And most of the clients were RPO, which meant that they would be paying agents' salaries and paying like a management cost. But Logix would not be managing their people. Obviously, that would be done direct with the client. And how it evolved is that we picked up a really big piece of work with an American property development company that looked for leasing and kind of maintenance CS calls. And as a result of that, it kind of turned the nature of the organization around to more BPO because, running kind of CS programs lends itself more towards us managing the people as well. And that's how we've kind of grown. We work across multi verticals, so our clients kind of range within the telco, within the airline or the travel industry. We do have a few kind of online retail companies and some bizarre kind of organizations that still need customer service. So we're now developing more towards improving and customers kind of CX processes, not necessarily going the full AI side at this stage, although we're not ruling that out going forward, obviously, because you got to be in it to win it. So we'll give you a sort of broad spec. Most of our business, I would say 75% of our business is CS and CX. The remaining is on kind of bespoke kind of work within the digital marketing arena or within, say, telemarketing stroke appointment setting for various companies that are in heavy duty sales as well. Things like solar or energy markets, we do a lot of work there as well. BPO means best practice outsourcing or best process outsourcing. It's got like that dual kind of meaning. What it really means is, look, you want to save yourself some money? If so, look offshore where the labor is obviously going to be cheaper, but the quality may also be a little bit more superior. So it's a win-win situation. For UK at the moment, the way minimum wage and national insurance has risen, but also you have the same effects in the places like the USA and Canada, where to do kind of menial work that was on the lowest hourly wage in somewhere like Canada, it's going to be around $23-25 an hour, and we're doing that at probably a third of the price. So it kind of gives you an idea as to how commercial it is for overseas or offshore companies to look at outsourcing.
Nice. You mentioned that you've worked across quite a few various sectors. I wanted to ask, what changes have you seen in what clients are asking for?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I think the clients have been looking for more kind of quality and price. And in order to do that, obviously you're asking people to do a better job, but you're asking them to do it for less money. But that's kind of key where the large clients are going. They're making it very tight and competitive. And yes, they are asking. I think you're kind of alluding to the fact that what else are they asking for in terms of looking towards things like self-service, which is where we can, develop the conversation, because it involves the AI, the machine learning, the RPA kind of processes. And, a lot of the offshoots of cost saving have been looking at, machine learning aspects and RPA aspects, not necessarily the AI side of things at the moment. I think there's kind of a willingness to test, but a kind of unwillingness to roll completely out. But it all kind of comes back down to how can you keep the quality high and the costs down, even more down compared to the equation that I gave you a few minutes ago. Yeah. No, they're not leading necessarily with tech. I think what they're leading with now is more from when I say tech, info security, cyber security, things like compliance, GDPR. I don't know if you want to bracket those into the tech side of things, but that's where people are now more leading towards. Is that security aspect? Is that quality aspect that would keep the companies more impressed about dealing with a BPO, rather than dealing with a company that is prepared to do a cheap price, but obviously not offer the kind of quality or compliance factor above it. So tech comes into it, but it's not the leading point. We'll give you this. It's beginning to start being on the agendas, talking points, because everybody's intrigued, with when you say tech, we're talking about AI effectively, or the various aspects like RPA or ML, right? But then they're not kind of going, oh, you have to have this, and they're not leading with it as this is what needs to happen. It's coming out through cases of kind of, where you work with a client, and that development of that client is evolving in terms of what they're looking for, within their internal kind of strategies. I mean, I have a client at the moment. They're based in America. We've been growing with them regularly, month on month. They've lost a lot of clients due to the fact that they didn't have AI. So they are developing their own AI process. We've already had conversations. It won't affect our headcount. What it may do is increase our headcount, because if they introduce AI, they can win back the lost clients. That would increase the volumes. Yes, AI is going to be there to kind of handle initially, the first call resolution side. However, where our team will grow would be more on, secondary level customer support, and even third level escalation resolution. So I'm kind of feeling good about it, although probably a little bit concerned about it, because I've been around too long now, and I've seen a lot of companies install AI and just cut heads, and then the next thing is they've needed to recruit heads back, because the current result of most AI, and I'm talking more chatbot as opposed to, because voice voice application isn't kind of there already at the moment in terms of self-service in the CS market. So I'm seeing a lot of weird and wonderful things happen. Sort of cutting 1 minute, recruiting the next. I'm just pleased to say that at least my clients are managing this, with me, and I'm able to react to support how they need to develop and grow and service their business.
No, nice. I was going to say the term digital transformation, it gets thrown out quite a lot. And that's, one of the reasons why we actually started the podcast. But from your perspective, what does it, actually look like inside a business or your business?
I think from a BPO perspective, I think it's growing the market outside the customary kind of CS or sales or telemarketing. I think it's now going specific, bespoke into things like social media management, into web development, into graphic design, into copywriting. And I think those are the kind of growth areas. They're also the expensive kind of role areas that by outsourcing to offshore talent, people are still able to, they're able to compete, more favorably in terms of cost per job or cost per project, which is how they're trying to manage their market. So I see it more from that perspective. I do see in a CS perspective more development, more in kind of RPA, where, for example, human error is obviously the biggest aspect of quality and poor performance. And that's abundant when you're dealing with airlines or you're dealing with telco or you're dealing with clients that have, large customer bases and multilingual customer bases as well. So I think there is some suitable solutions on the market at the moment. I call them glorified spell checkers, because even that alone, you can imagine getting a name wrong or the date of birth wrong on a ticket means the person doesn't fly. It's a screw up, it's a big financial error. Who's going to pay for that? Obviously, the airline doesn't want to pay for it. The person that supported the airline doesn't want to pay for it. The client doesn't want to pay for it. So it all comes back down to the service provider, which is the contact center. They have to pay for it. If you can minimize the amount of human error, which is things like date of birth, it's written in different ways across various parts of the world. So if you can standardize that, have a glorified RPA process that checks that, the PNR numbers, the correct spelling, versus the passport, all done in split seconds. Whereas, from a manual perspective, it doesn't take split seconds. And I think that's been a good game changer. It's reduced the financial, penalties, a lot. A lot across my client range and previous client ranges as well. So seeing that as a massive.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And Chris, I know you kind of touched on AI, RPA, variety of different things, but where are these tools actually making a difference for your clients, would you say?
Yeah, again, pretty much on the financial aspects, on the speed aspect as well. They make a great deal of difference. And therefore you have to then say quality, because you're not having to recheck, for errors. You're not having to redo for errors. So from a time perspective, saves a lot of time. On a quality perspective, it's up there. So yeah, definitely. And therefore, there's a cost element as well, isn't there? Because if you're not having to redo the job, you're not having to kind of pay to have it redone. You're not having to pay the penalty either. So I think there's there's a degree of saving there. And I think that, these are areas that are that have been, very much innovative and great, in the industry, because you still need people to process the initial information through the system. So it's not taking people out of the job.
Yeah, no, definitely. Chris, I was going to ask, on the flip side, have you ever seen any automation projects go wrong?
I think what happens is they all go wrong at the beginning. You never see anything that's entirely perfect, right from the get-go. I think I think one that would kind of spring to mind would possibly be, if you look at a big telco organization in the UK, they wiped out a layer of first line customer support, went straight in with AI. And I think that was where it went wrong, because the chatbot had a limited kind of option range. If your question wasn't in that option range, right? But also the problem was that it kept, instead of going, oh, okay, we can't help you, they kept spitting out the same range, 3 or 4 times, which meant the customers were going, for God's sake, I've asked you this 3 times now. You're still throwing out the same information that's not answering my question. Let me speak to an operator. And then, of course, there weren't enough operators, to be able to come and handle that inquiry, because it was pretty much every call that was being escalated back. So probably that's where it went, where it goes wrong mainly. And as I say, I haven't seen anything that's come in and gone, that's worked right from the start. Test case first, try it with a few people, then you can see what the issues are. Then you can then repair those issues, test it again until you're 100% accurate that it works, it's doing what it says on the tin, then roll out. The trouble is, people look at it, think, yeah, it looks great in demonstration format, but then, it's been demonstrated by experts that have developed it. They kind of know it. And then if you're having to give that off to third parties to now do the demonstration in real time, again, it's a balls up. It goes completely tits, from the moment it starts.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying is that the automation and the chatbot, it wasn't prompted correctly. It wasn't trained on sufficient amount of knowledge, which caused it to basically fail.
Yeah. And I haven't seen it kind of improve too much. When you look at those kind of applications, banks are the real key players, aren't they? And it's not just UK banks. I'm talking worldwide banks. They all kind of have that same issue, Plus, a lot of the kind of bots are not just necessarily on type; they're on voice recognition as well, and that's been a real problem, because it reminds me of the Siri event. If Siri doesn't understand you, like you don't get what you want, and that's exactly what's happening in this industry. They don't kind of understand. Certain accents are coming out, and they're not getting it. And I mean, we can laugh about it because it's not affecting me at the moment, but it will do. So I won't be laughing too much then, I must admit.
So we've got the negative side of things. In terms of like the positive side of things, what are some of the positive characteristics to a successful automation?
I think the view of taking the customer through the pain barrier of long call queuing, and then eventually, being on, just to sort out a small problem, being on a call for 45 minutes, an hour or plus. I think it's improved the call flow. It's improved the abandonment rate. It's improved things like, IVRs, where you're actually understanding what you think the client's problem is, putting him through to the right area to have that problem resolved. So helping on things like first call resolution, and less escalation has probably been, the biggest kind of driver, and that involved with customer experience, which I'm talking about less queue time, less bad experiences, less not having your problem resolved. I think also it's played a big part on the improvement of that cycle. Almost the customer, I mean, the ideal way it's going to end up is full self-service from a customer perspective, which it'd be interesting, wouldn't it, to see?
100%.
I don't think I'm going to be alive at that point, to be fair. But anyway, who knows?
Who knows? Elon Musk is he's creating something where people can install these chips into our brain, and who knows, it might be able to keep the blood pumping around our hearts and so forth. But yeah, this is going to go a little bit left, so let's just get back on track.
Yes.
But no, Chris, it's evident that automation can help, but we feel that it's very important to, of course, always keep the human element and the human touch. But how do you guys, keep that balance?
We don't have too much automation at the moment, but on the accounts that we do have, gone with a more kind of structured approach that says that it's all about how we lay the team out in terms of who's going to receive what calls. So we're looking at the direction of the call or the chat to the right people. So, for example, if we take that, I mean, we got multiple kind of CS programs, but to take the one I mentioned, which was a property. So your main call drivers or deflectors are maintenance calls or leasing, right? So what you want to do is you want to have the automation direct the call through to the right area that's going to answer the right call, rather than you put through a leasing call to someone who doesn't run leasing. He's completely clueless. So I think that's kind of where it is, where it splits for us in terms of the workforce management process on the universal queuing process, how it then gets automated and routed, through to the relevant agent. And I think that's been a big win-win situation, because it's reduced queues, it's reduced, pains and escalations as well. Just speaking to the right people or dealing with the right bot that gives you the correct answer.
Well, that's amazing. And Chris, kind of going a little bit off topic. I know there's quite a lot of players in the outsourcing space. So how do you get a Logix solution in front of the right people in the right time, would you say?
Honestly, there isn't an answer for that, and I don't think we ever do, because you're right. There's just too many. I think if you look at BPO in the Philippines, we probably come in the top 20, and obviously we're going to come behind some of the big game players. I'm not going to give them space on your show.
Let's not. Let's not.
But if you then Google BPO in Cebu, we'd be on the top. So also, strangely enough, our website, which is, if Anthony was here, he'd be echoing this. Our website is crap. It's going through a redevelopment process, which is going to look absolutely fantastic. But we get a lot of people come through the website, make inquiries. As I say, we're a flexible kind of BPO, so we would talk to large companies that want big CX programs of, hundreds of people. We also talk to bespoke clients that are only looking for maybe one or two people. So we're very kind of diverse, and so a lot of the work that we get, comes via the website. Plus, as I say, I've been in the industry 37 years. I have a lot of clients that I've worked with across the years that still work with me. And that is great, because it means that we can still grow by having these clients that know me, I know them. It's a great relationship, because, I will run their program the best I possibly can. They know that that's what they get out of me. Sometimes it goes wrong, and they also know that I will quickly react, resolve, and get it back on track. So I don't look over my shoulder at the big players. I don't look over my shoulder at all the other independents that are everyone's got their story. I'm only interested in getting Logix, in front of people, and that is the hard game. So a little bit about, our kind of marketing. We're going to be doing an awful lot of marketing over the next weeks and months. In fact, there will be an announcement next week that kind of will change the kind of flow of what's happening at Logix, and it'll be really positive. And I just think, you're never ever, even if you spent millions and millions of pounds on Google, even if you spent, millions of pounds on advertising support, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get the inquiry. And that is the hard thing. And the more and more people that set about it are doing silly things in the market. They're coming in at X dollars an hour, which is kind of peanuts, not even thinking about what are you doing, because we pay our people well. We pay their benefits. We also put out the best equipment possible for our people to utilize. We have all the best support that we don't charge clients for. For example, if it is a one-off person that they want, somebody needs to manage them here. So we give them a manager scope within a range. We kind of 10 to 15 people per TL. So they will have someone that they can report to and moan to and boast to, or whatever it is. And we don't charge. We don't charge for that. So to answer your question, it is unbearable. That, and obviously the development of technology is pulling from one side, and then you got these guys pulling from the other side. So it's a tough gig to be in. A lot tougher, right? As I say, I've been around a long time now, and I think since COVID, I can see it. It's been tightened up. I think also silly things have happened. Obviously, during COVID, there was a lot more remote working going on. Obviously, for spacing and kind of COVID elements of office infrastructure and stuff happening. And since then, people have got the love and the taste of work from home, so they don't necessarily want to come into an office. But that's going to change because obviously with compliance being the way it is, and InfoSec being the big game plan, and cybersecurity being the second game plan, and then you've then got other accreditations that are wanting fully compliant kind of processes. People aren't going to be allowed to work from home unless they go through their own accreditation, i.e., can you see somebody working from home on a whatever agent salary being able to afford to put themselves through ISO, let alone PCI, let alone HIPAA, let alone GDPR? How are they going to prove themselves? So I think that's going to have a massive effect on where the work from home remote aspect happens going forward.
Do you feel that when people are working in office, their productivity levels are better? Because even I used to work in an office, and when COVID came, I thought my energy was completely different, to be honest.
Well, you felt it was worse. Your energy was worse when COVID.
Definitely, 100%.
I think from what I found, because I was involved here in the Philippines with another group, I remember the day lockdown happened here in the Philippines, and we had to rush around getting laptops for all our staff, and having to get dongles, having to get all this IT kit, not buy it but rent it, and then going and checking the infrastructure of where they're going to work. And I remember thinking at the time, this is a nightmare. This is rough as anything. However, we were still allowed to have people on site, obviously with strict protocols. And I noticed a difference in performance with the people on site versus the people at home. It started off, the people at home were kind of eager to work well, because they were frightened that their jobs were going. All right. The people on site treated COVID obviously serious, but as a, hey, as long as they kind of had a risk aspect here, you know what I mean? So, for example, you'd see them on the corridors going to the comfort rooms. They wouldn't have their mask fully on and all this kind of stuff, because they kind of got used to it. And it was a bit like going to the moon and walking outside the shuttle without a helmet, thinking, oh yeah, I can breathe. So that's kind of how it was. And there was a lot of things happening to keep morale up. A lot of things like food being brought onto the site, rather than the people leave to go for all the checkpoints, to go and get food that was very rarely on sale. There was a lot of good aspects that made it like the camaraderie good, made it like hey, everybody's in this together. And I think that had a great positive effect on, the output of work. And then gradually what you saw was the mentality of the people on site were buzzy. They were, hey, we're here again. And the people off site were missing so much of, hey, hang on. So what happened then last week? Oh, you all had that. Well, yeah. And they were thinking, shit, I'm missing out. And then it had other aspects, because a bit like social distancing, had aspects of, mental issues, where people were kind of going stir crazy about being locked in their bedroom, and working from their bedroom, eating from their bedroom, sleeping in their bedroom, of course, and they weren't really interacting with their family because they were not able to while they were on shift, because any kind of background noise, I know that obviously noise cancelling headsets, but nothing's 100%, so you'd hear cockerels crowing, you'd hear dogs barking, babies crying, people shouting at other people, from the street, car noises, beeping the horns, this kind of
It's
stuff.
too much.
Yeah, it's just, clients didn't want it, obviously, and in the end, people kind of felt that they were missing out on so much. We call it here in the Philippines, like gossip. We call it chismis, right? So they were missing the chismis.
Yeah, no, Chris, I wanted to say that there was a company that I worked for. Actually, so I used to do a bit of cold calling, and I think I asked one of the directors, "Why don't you allow us to work from home during this period of time?" So we're very fortunate we actually were allowed to go into the office during COVID. And he said the reasons why I didn't want you guys to be working from home is, one, you'll slack off. Two, the morale that will be in the office and the buzz and the energy. This is what gets you through the day. It's what helps you keep the liveliness on the phone, and people can feel your energy when you're on the phone as well. So it just makes sense with what you guys were talking about.
But Chris, I was gonna ask, as we move into the second half of 2025, what do you say business leaders should be paying more close attention to?
It's, as you alluded to earlier, there's a lot of companies at the moment starting up, and I think what they're doing is, they're trying to make shortcuts. So of course it's all about talent pool. I think we should be aware of how good our talent pool is and how we can still develop our talent pool, keep that talent pool interested, keep that talent pool loyal, because these companies are coming up. They're doing two things. They're offering more money to people because they don't understand, and they're offering less money to the client, right? So what that's doing is it's eroding the margins. So I think for us, let's not worry about what they're doing unless they're trying to step in our puddle. But let's kind of just worry about keeping our customers happy and keeping our people aligned and happy as well. I think that's the key. And also, how do we develop beyond being good in our areas? What other areas can we be good in? So those are probably the three core areas I'm certainly focusing on.
Lovely stuff. Just a final thought. What's one piece of advice you would give to firms trying to future-proof their operations right now?
That last element about your people, got good people, then listen to those people. Obviously, when I say listen to them, I don't mean kind of listen to all their little things, because then that way you'll always be adjusting it. But try and keep your people, try and keep them engaged, motivated, and always try your best for your clients. Be honest to your clients, even when it goes tits. Explain to the client. I think they respect you rather than you kind of make up fantasies. I was going to say lies, but let's call it fantasies. You make up fantasies just because you think that's what they want to hear. That's what they want to believe.
No, nice. Thank you, Chris. That's got a lot of golden nuggets from this podcast. Some personal and some that, of course, not a lot of people will be able to take on themselves. So yeah, we want to say thank you so much. We appreciate the time. And for people that want to find more about yourself and the business, where could they go? Where can we direct them to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Logix website is www.logix, and that's Logix BPO.com. And my email address is chris.m for Mackintosh, chris.m@logixbpo.com. Feel free to reach out.
Perfect stuff. Well, Chris, thank you once again. It's been an amazing episode. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll be staying in touch. All right.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, God. You enjoyed it.